The Goat House is back. Myles Garrett has requested a trade. So I'm here breaking down any important information about a potential trade and giving you all the landing spots. We'll put those into tiers. Let's break it down. Some very important information to know about a potential Myles Garrett trade. So first, right now, today, the Browns do not want to trade Myles Garrett, nor do they absolutely have to trade him. If it comes out that he's for sure going to sit out forever, the whole season, then maybe they feel like they have to trade him. But right now, it's not a must. But of course, things could change. Maybe the Browns are trying to gain leverage, get more compensation by saying, we're not trading him. We're not even entertaining calls. Or they might just really just not want to trade him because sometimes teams just do not want to trade superstar players. Makes sense. But of course, things could change here and things could get a little crazy at any given time. The Browns actually lose $16 million plus by trading Myles Garrett. So they don't clear that amount. They lose that. That's a major issue, a major obstacle in a trade because the Browns are already in a major hole when it comes to the cap space. They already have to dig themselves out of a hole. They have to restructure contracts. They have to cut players they don't want to. And by trading Myles Garrett, they're going to do more of that. You trade a superstar player and you have to do more digging yourselves out of a hole. Of course, they can make him a post-June 1st trade that'll eventually clear a little bit of space. They still have to do some major digging while trading a superstar player. So that, and it's going to hurt them in the long run because restructuring Watson, restructuring Denzel Ward, they would have to cut Conklin, cut Bitonio, go major rebuild, and restructuring deals actually kicks the can down the road. It piles on new cap charges in future years. So it kind of makes it jeopardizes your future at the same time. So not ideal. His current value feels like 2 first-round picks maximum. There was an unnamed GM that said 1 first-round pick, multiple day twos, maybe a player in there. It is no way, no how 3 first-round picks. So, and the max would be 2 first-round picks. The Browns likely to want more. They don't want to trade him on top of it. They put themselves in a hole cap-wise. So if they do trade him, you think you would want appropriate value. I think he's worth a lot. I think you do out there as well. He's a superstar talent, the best pass rusher in the game. So why does Myles Garrett want to trade? He wrote out a whole letter. He wants to trade because it's his dream to win a Super Bowl. He wants to win a Super Bowl. So that means he wants to go to a Super Bowl contender. I do not get the sense right now, it doesn't really feel like it, that he will be willing to go to a maybe contender. The Browns felt like a maybe contender a few years ago. They kind of went back down to, it was more than a couple years ago, went kind of back down to being that dysfunctional team. So does he want to mess around one of those teams that are maybe getting themselves out of the situation like the Browns once did? I don't get that sense. I think non-contenders should not consider it. I don't think they should risk it. And you could say, well, it's not his choice. The Browns can trade him to a non-contender. Well, why would the non-contender do that? They're going to trade a ton of value, give up these big-time draft picks, compensation, maybe it's another player, and then he's going to be unhappy. He's going to want to be traded again. It's just not worth it. So I think only contenders that could actually afford him should consider it. That's my opinion, even though it's a lot of teams. And then Garrett would come with a $19.8 million cap hit this year and a $25 million cap hit next year. That's not unreasonable. Actually, this year is very affordable, but he's going to be looking for a new deal, whether it's definitely an extension, possibly a raise as well. So what did we learn here? What did we learn from the potential landing spots, what they need to be? They need to be a contender. We'll talk about other teams that could be potential contenders as landing spots, but they need to be some form of contender, and they need to be able to afford him now, but afford the new extension in the future. Time to break down the potential landing spots for a Myles Garrett trade. I customized some tiers, and at the end, I'll drag teams up, the teams that fit, as the most likely landing spot, so stay tuned to the end. I already filled out the division rival tier. The Browns don't want to trade Myles Garrett right now, so they're going to have to want to trade him, and then they're going to have to want to trade him to a division rival. I don't really see that happening. Ravens don't have the best financial status to be able to afford him now in the future. The Bengals could afford him, but they got to worry about Trey Hendrickson contract, redoing his contract, T. Higgins right now, Jamar Chase future contract, so some obstacles there and a division rival. Steelers would be interested. They're always interested in the stars, but they have 2 stud pass rushers already. Again, might be interested. Don't see the Browns wanting to trade him there. Let's go through every team. I'm not going to place every team in a tier. The Panthers, I'm tempted to put them in dark horse, but I don't think Myles Garrett view them as enough a contender. I don't think that defense will be appealing enough to play with, but they are heading in the right direction. The Cardinals, I'll put in the can't afford, not a contender right now. They can afford them. It's a need. They'll have interest, but they're currently not a contender. they have a bright future. It just comes down to Myles Garrett. Where does he view them? Bears, similar, same thing. I'm putting them with the Cardinals. They can definitely afford them. They have draft ammo. Not a contender right now. It's funny, though, because the Browns were kind of dysfunctional. The Bears have been dysfunctional, so it's kind of hard to see Myles Garrett going, yeah, I want to go there. But at the same time, high hopes for the Bears right now. New staff. They have talent on the roster. Bright future. So maybe Myles Garrett will view them as a potential very soon or future contenders. Just kind of up to him, really. The Bills, a lot of people talking about the Bills. I'm putting them exactly where they belong, contender, but tight on future cap. The Bills are a tricky one right now. A lot of people thinking them as the landing spot, but there's some obstacles. Yes, they're an appealing spot for Myles Garrett. He would love to play for the Buffalo Bills because they're a very good team. They're a legit Super Bowl contender. They can't afford Myles Garrett right now. And it's going to be tough to afford him in the future right now. Of course, they can clear space to afford him right now. They can cut Von Miller, still got to clear more. They can restructure contracts. The problem with that is some people don't understand restructuring is not making cap space disappear. It's pushing some of the cap space into future years. So you're jeopardizing your future. A couple things. The Bills typically do not restructure contracts. Some teams believe in it. Some teams don't. They typically don't do it. Doesn't mean they won't do it. But they have to do all that just to afford him now, and he needs a future extension, and they're already kind of bottom tier, even with the Von Miller cut, shedding future cap. They're still bottom tier in future cap space, so it's a tough situation there for the Buffalo Bills. Certainly possible, appealing landing spot, but they got to work around some things, of course. The Cowboys, I'll put the Cowboys in dark horse. They don't have the cap space now, but they easily could clear it. They're not afraid to restructure some contracts. But they have to deal with Micah Parsons and making sure he's sticking around for the long-term future. Can they focus on both while building up the rest of the team? Are they a contender? A little question there. The Lions are in the same boat as the Bills. Slightly different. The Lions have plenty of cap space today. Future, they're bottom tier. So can they go and trade for Myles Garrett, give him an extension? They could find a way for it to work, but they're a little tight on cap space for the future. But a team that makes a lot of sense because they're a contender. They have some cap space now at least, and they're looking for another pass rusher possibly. Packers are in the same boat. Definitely could use a pass rusher. They have cap space now. They're a little tight in the future though. Do they make these splash trades? We will see. Chiefs, I'll put in dark horse. Don't count on it. They're very, maybe he takes a major pay cut to go to the Chiefs. Maybe that, they're worried about other things, finding that left tackle of the future. So it's certainly possible. I feel like kind of a dark horse, tempted to move them into this tier with those other contenders. The Raiders will go in the Cardinals, Bears tier. They don't really feel like a contender anytime soon, but they have Pete Carroll. They bring in Chip Kelly. Think they have a top draft pick. They have Max Crosby, a unnamed GM already mentioned. They wonder if the Raiders go for him to pair. So they're thinking it. And they could definitely afford him. Will Myles Garrett be okay playing there? It's a little bit of a mystery. We think he wants more of a contender. Rams, I'll go dark horse. They have a ton of future cap space once they're off the books with Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp. They have some young studs at the edge rush position. So will they even go for it? Patriots definitely in this tier. Can't afford, not a contender, but Mike Vrabel team that looks like they have a bright future. Maybe it's appealing enough for Myles Garrett. Jets, are they a dark horse? I think Aaron Glenn would love them to have them there, but they got other things to focus on. Eagles are definitely in the contender, tight on future cap. They're not afraid to go out and get big time players. That's what they do. They could definitely use another pass rusher. But they actually dead last in 2027 cap space, and that's where the extension would start for Myles Garrett. They're a team where cap space doesn't really matter to them. They'll restructure maximum void deals on the contracts, kick the can down the road. So cap isn't a major flaw for them, even though they are dead last in 2027. They have some cap space this year. I feel like Garrett could fit anybody's scheme, but that was a big thing for Vic Fangio this offseason. Like Reddick doesn't fit. They even said Sweat doesn't fit, but they tried to trade him. They didn't do that. Maybe they're happy they have him still. So technically not a scheme fix. He's more of a 4-3-N, but I feel like Garrett could fit any scheme. Then for the 49ers, I'll put dark horse. They're similar to these teams. Like they have cap space now, so similar to Lions, Packers. Not so much in the future, but I don't think they're really focused on bringing in Myles Garrett. I think they're more focused on extending Brock Purdy, working on several things: the offensive line, the defensive line, not just one spot. So I think they're focused on several other things. So I'll put them in the dark horse. Seahawks definitely going to go with this tier. They can't afford him today, but they have a lot of easy ways to clear cap space, so they will clear it. They'll have enough space, and they have a lot of future space as well. So that is key there. And they're somewhat of an appealing team. Are they a future contender? I guess depending on the quarterback situation. Bucks, I'll go dark horse. Struggles to afford him this year, but they have future cap space. Definitely need a pass rusher. Focus could be elsewhere. Are they a legit contender? They feel kind of a dark horse right now. And then Titans, I think they're too far, and they would, if anything, maybe rather draft Abdul Carter. I think they're too far from being a contender. It just doesn't make sense for the Titans to trade for him and then him not be happy and then ask for a trade again. You lose draft picks. It just doesn't. Myles Garrett doesn't want to go there. First one that's going in the top tier as of right now. I'm not putting any teams yet in this tier. I will in this video, though. We have a checklist here. Does a team need them? Do they want them? Yes, yes. Can they afford them? Commanders, yes. Are they a contender? They went to the NFC Championship game this year. Dan Quinn would love to have them. They check all the boxes right now. So the Washington Commanders are in the top tier, and they will, spoiler, they will go in the most likely landing spots once we're said and done here. Hey, you got 2 in a row. As another team join the Washington Commanders. Chargers, Khalil Mack's a free agent. Could they bring him back? Sure. They're probably going to move on from Joey Bosa. They already have enough cap space as it is. They'll have even more moving on from him. They're a legit team. Harbaugh's a guy you want to play for. They have potential to keep getting better and maybe be more of a contender. They check all the boxes. They check all the boxes for everything, so that they're a very logical landing spot. The Giants, they have pass rushers. They're looking for they have their focus elsewhere. They're not an appealing landing spot. Saints, cap space, hell right now, not an appealing landing spot. Vikings have cap space. They have multiple pass rushers. I don't think that's where their mind is set right now. Dolphins, a little bit of a cap space situation. They have a long list of pass rushers, even though some of them have injuries. Falcons are a team that I'm going to put here. We'll talk more about the Falcons at the end. But today, they can't, like the Seahawks, much like the Seahawks, today they technically cannot afford him. They have easy ways to clear space. Easy, non-future hurting ways to clear space. They will clear the space. They can afford him. They have future cap. Pretty appealing spot, like the Seahawks. Like, they're not a contender technically, but they're pretty appealing. They can get to being a contender. Broncos have pass rushers. They have cap space. I think their focus is elsewhere. They have good pass rushers. I don't see it. Colts, I don't think it's an appealing enough landing spot for him. They have pass rushers, young pass rushers. I don't see it. The Texans, I'm blocking. I don't see it right now. And the Jags, the other team, I do not see it. Again, maybe you can move the Panthers and the Jets in the dark horse. I'm not really counting on those teams, though. I'm mainly focused on that. Maybe you can move the Chiefs with these teams. That's definitely possible. So, in my opinion, the most likely landing spots, I'll put the Browns up there, even though that's the current landing spot, just because, like we talked about in the beginning of this video, they don't want to trade them. Of course, that's how it always starts off. They could eventually change their mind, but they have a problem if they trade him. I talked about it in the beginning of this video, where they're already in a hole. They're in more of a hole financially if they trade him. They're going to have to do things they don't want to, cut guys they don't want to cut, restructure contracts they don't want to restructure, and they're going to end up in a bad situation without their superstar player. So it makes sense that he could stay there. I already said, obviously, I'm going to bump up the Commanders. They check all the boxes as an appealing spot. They're going to want him. Chargers, same thing. There are some teams that I'm still thinking about this. The Bills, a lot of people were saying the Bills, a lot of things need to happen here. They don't love restructuring contracts. They got to clear space, and even after all that, they're going to be tight on future cap space. The Lions, I'll put the Lions up there because they have the offense. I know they're tight on future cap space. They can work around that, but they have the offense. What let them down, I know they had turnovers, but what let them down was how bad the defense was. It's tough, though, because they'll get Hutchinson back. They'll get a lot of other guys back, and they may feel like they don't need Myles Garrett. So it's a tough one. I think those other 3 spots, the 2 new teams or acquiring teams are better landing spots. The Packers, again, they're right there with the Lions. They just don't really tend to make these splash trades. The Eagles, to me, I kind of want to put up here because they're not set at all financially in the future, dead last 2027. But they're a team that just doesn't give a flying F. Howie Roseman does not give a flying F about cap space. He really just doesn't. He'll hurt the future. He'll make void years, restructure deals. He'll kick the can down the road. Not a problem. So financially, they will make it work. But it's. I still think these other teams are a little more likely, so that I would kind of order it like that. If you want to go like this, that would be the order. The Chargers and Commanders are pretty interchangeable. I'm trying to think who would be wanting to do that more. Maybe the Browns would be more likely to trade them in the NFCs, the Commanders. And then I actually will pull up teams. The Falcons, I could see them wanting to play for the Falcons and the Seahawks. And then Vrabel's a little appealing if I were to move up another. I'm just kind of ordering them at this point. I'm kind of ordering these teams. Maybe we go Bills then. Those are the teams I'm really looking at. I really think it's staying on the Browns, Commanders, Chargers. There's some obstacles with these other teams, but I totally could see, something like that, that right there. A lot of people saying the Bills are a team to watch out for. Again, the Bears feel like a team of the future. We've thought that about the Bears before, though, so it's like, does Myles Garrett believe in that? It's hard for me to see him jumping from the Bears to the Browns organization, but it really feels like they have a bright future, so could the Bears, go up there? And the Patriots and the Bears are in the same spot. Bright futures. How does Myles Garrett feel? So I'd kind of rank those teams like that. The Bills probably up here next. That's probably how I'd rank the teams. Who checks the most boxes? Besides the Browns, it's the Commanders and the Chargers. So we'll have more trade predictions, trade candidates in the very near future. We usually do a damn good job predicting actual trades. Right now, my feeling is still there's a lot that needs to happen. A lot that the Browns need to be okay with by trading him. So right now, hate to let everyone down, but it kind of feels like he could. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the Browns to trade him. But there are some teams that can definitely make it work. So there's my take on everything at this early stage. We'll talk about more trade possibilities in the near future. We have a bunch of off-season, free agency cuts, draft content on the channel. Check it out. Like, subscribe, to notifications on me. Much appreciated. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.